Good afternoon. It's not such a good idea to stand between the soup and the main course, so I'll try to make it short. But it's always better than the main course and the dessert, which my colleague is going to talk about. During this conference, I met many people, and I was quite surprised by the passion, the commitment, the concern what people have for the topic of this conference, which is business for environment and, let's say in other words, sustainable growth. And during all these conversations, one thing which became very clear, that apart from the governments or the NGOs, it's now our customers, our suppliers, and our partners in business who are demonstrating and demanding a lot on sustainable growth. And that makes one wonder, what is it that has changed over the last 4 to 5 years? What has happened over the last 4 or 5 years that has made us think so differently? And then one realizes that yes, there have been 2-3 changes, one in ecology, political upheavals, and social upheavals. In ecology, we have seen events like tsunami, events like the dust cloud, some very damaging hurricanes which one cannot explain with or one couldn't predict, causing lots of damage to human lives, billions of dollars, and lots of man days lost. Then the political and the social upheavals are quite known. You know what has happened in North Africa, Egypt, Libya in last 1 year. 3 years back, I don't think anybody even predicted that. What happened in, let's say, the financial crisis in 2008 or the current European crisis, these are all affecting our lives in a very, very different way. And there is a feeling of bit of uncertainty. When you hear someone talking of food scarcity and inflation, there are lots of concerns about the world. And lastly, you hear about the water. I was quite surprised to read the World Economic Forum report, which said that so far as agriculture is concerned, almost 75 million acres of land every year is going from agricultural to non-agricultural land, either because of infertility, being toxic waste, or because of urbanization. And whatever is remaining, a lot of it, almost 45 million acres, is being used for planting trees for biofuels. Similarly in water, by 2030, the fresh water is not going to be replenished by the nature. And mind you, 70% of the fresh water is actually used in the agriculture. So here is a dichotomy that we have rising population, rising demand for food, rising demand for water, and you have land for agriculture is going down and nature's replenishment for fresh water is also going down. So that's why there is a unusual sense of uncertainty and crisis, and I think it's time that all of us, both in government, in business, in NGOs, lawyers, everybody, bankers, all of us start thinking differently, and there is a sense of urgency and sense of results what we need to get into our acts. If you talk of sustainability, corporates today are actually working on 2 dimensions. Number one is the standard usual one, which is new products, new businesses, efficiency improvement, cost reduction, etc., and simultaneously ensuring that, yes, the environment is under control or you don't impact it adversely. All this happens because it makes economic sense. The other dimension, which is growth of community around you. And by that I mean, is the community having an improved standard of living? Does it have an improved standard of hygiene, health, etc.? That's one. And secondly, are we doing something without damaging the environment? Now, these may not have a financial returns, but if the business believes in principle or believes that yes, these are the things of community growth and environmental sustainability is in the interest of business, I think that's what should happen in a different way. And that's what will be a second level of sustainable development. So whenever one, in summary, what I wanted to say was that, yes, there is a growth in the economies, there is growth in the wealth of the people. Previous speakers talked about it, and therefore you will have more and more demand on resources. As a result, because of this increased demand, you have shortage of resources, you have increase in greenhouse gas emissions, you have increase in food consumption, and then you have a increase in the waste accumulation. And therefore again come back to the equation that yes, to do all this right, we need to manage our resources very well. You must use as less as possible, use it as efficiently as possible, and ensure that you do the least damage, or at least you are economically environmentally neutral or better, because we have damaged quite a lot, so we now need to gain quite a lot. So with this as a background, one starts wondering what one can do. And I thought there are three aspects on which the business can work together with all the stakeholders. Number one, most important to my mind, is actually having a common and shared view of the problem we are facing. And I'll give you a very simple example what I mean. Many times it so happens that one is, let's say, opening a new mine or running a mine for, let's say, 5 years. You will find that after some time, questions are asked from the stakeholders or from anybody about what has happened to the people whom you displaced. What is their standard of living today? What is their education standard? How are they coping up? What are their health standards? Have you taken care of all that? Then someone can ask you a question about what has happened to the flora, fauna, forests. And since there is no base data, there is no common understanding, nobody has studied it well, all of us can argue, and argue with lots of passions. Net result is lots of bitterness, lots of delays, and again, loss of economic activities. If even at this juncture, whether it's a new mine or an operating mine, if everyone comes together, all stakeholders, which is the people who are affected, the government, the NGOs, and the business, and decides on a path forward, things can improve a lot. But that doesn't happen. And then you have a lot of bad blood and a lot of bitterness. So having a common and a shared understanding, and for which we have technology today, by which you can definitely develop a very good database. As the famous saying goes, everybody is entitled to his own opinions, but not to his facts. So if we have the shared facts, I think lots of misunderstandings and the delays will be taken out of the system. The second item is more of a, which I call it as a total systems thinking, or previous speakers also mentioned, it's the end-to-end thinking. What is the total impact? For example, I recently was quite surprised to listen to a lecture in our World Steel Association Congress in Paris. And I think there was this professor from University of Santa Barbara who talked about the electric cars. And what he showed with the data, and I really want to understand it even to a second level, but I thought I'll just share with you, is that if you have an electric vehicle, but the battery is charged by the power which is made from hydel or from nuclear source, it's fine. But if it is made from thermal sources, which is using, let's say, coal or natural gas, it's not fine, because overall, end to end, you are not meeting the balance the way it is intended to be. Similarly, after Fukushima, you have a lot of debate about the nuclear energy. Again, we all know what are the impact it had, but if you talk to the nuclear experts, you get a completely different picture of safety, of environment, and certainly it's the least economically or environmentally damaging way of producing power today. But based on some bad news or some sort of a publicity, we tend to take some drastic decisions which can affect us in the long run. So my suggestion for all this is always think in a total system and what's the complete impact on the environment rather than just that particular aspect of a battery of a car or something like this. And the third thing is that everything is not bad news for business. The current focus on sustainable growth is not only about regulations or only about restrictions or only about high cost. It's also about tremendous level of business opportunities, what we see for ourselves today. You can see opportunities in waste management, waste utilization. There are opportunities in energy production, storage, distribution, and transmission. There are opportunities in automotive and construction. There are opportunities in air, water, everywhere. So all new businesses, all can be for the better of the mankind, better of the human beings, and those all can be achieved quite easily and with lots of gains. For example, just to give you an example, the steel industry today works with automotive companies over last, not today, but over last 5 years. And we have managed to reduce the weight of the car significantly by producing steels which are higher in strength. We have worked on the suspension, we have worked on transmissions, we have worked on the body. We have worked with construction industry to produce high strength steel so that you can reduce the weights of the buildings and weights of the foundation. So lots of work is being done to reduce wastages, improve the stability, improve the safety, improve even the seismic resistance. So the work is being done, and business can do lots of things to sustain the, to grow sustainably. And many times we find that yes, there are lots of, why even our families and our children, they ask you today, what sort of business are you in, what sort of product you make, and are you responsible, are you working in a responsible way? So at least if not during the day hours, but at home, you need to be comfortable with the thought of sustainable growth. So that's the way it has caught on, and I think these three things, let me just repeat. One was total systems thinking or end-to-end thinking. One is a shared or the common knowledge or the database, and the third is opportunities in the business. And if we all innovate well with the interest of sustainable growth, I think we will certainly find that the world is moving ahead in a much more peaceful and a sustainable manner than what it is going on today. Lastly, I just want to quote our founder, who told us something as a Tata Group more than 100 years back. And that time, all this was not sort of fashionable or not in the in thing, but what he wrote was, and what we follow, is that, I am quoting, in a free enterprise, community is not just another stakeholder, but the very purpose of its existence. And the second quote is, what comes from society must go back to the society many times over. Thank you.